Beyond the forbidden.
But the majority of people accept that there is at least an astral realm if you're New Age, or a spiritual realm if you're religious. I do not discount the possibility that there's life on other planets, that there are potentially some creatures with the technology to travel planet to planet in outer space. So I leave that on the table as a possibility. However, I think what we're dealing with, what we see and what we've seen for thousands of years, is more unseen realm entities. They're probably very similar to us. And I think they were created for the astral. There's a possibility we were created for the earth and they were created for the astral, but I don't know that. Is it possible we were also created in a spiritual realm and our so-called fall is actually what brought us to the earth? I consider that as well. But either way, I think we have spiritual beings who rebelled against their creator and were cast to the earth. And I think that this is where they are, and this is where they've been for a very long time. I think you've already referred to the many disguises that they wear, and there's been times that they've changed their tactics, and right now they're presenting themselves as aliens from outer space. Yeah, so I think it even goes beyond that. Not only does Schwab have severe entity attachments and maybe even some type of possession, I think these entities are all around us at all times, and I think we are all being influenced by the spiritual realm at all times, some more so than others. I think that, when you get up to the Charles Schwab level, you can't be there without it. Those bloodlines are cultivated by the non-human intelligence to get to where they need to be. But I would go beyond that and say we're all being influenced. Abductees and people in the UFO community who have seen entities or UFOs, we call ourselves experiencers. And it's my personal opinion that we are all experiencers of this phenomena. It's just a matter of awareness. I think most people are completely unaware that there is this spiritual realm acting upon us at all times. Tucker Carlson said it not too long ago. We are being acted upon at all times. And it seems like life is some kind of a test, and you need to make a choice. You're going to go one way or the other. You can go to the darkness or you can go to the light. And there definitely seems to be some type of connection with the afterlife. So as part of one of the passages, the passage you read, it said, these are flesh and blood beings, but they are also involved in the afterlife. That's a conundrum there, right? They seem very metaphysical. They seem to be able to phase in and out of our eyesight, our ability to see, and they seem to be able to phase in and out of the realm of physical realm and the astral or the spiritual realm. So they seem to have some type of dominion in both realms. And I think ultimately this will just be a mastery of physics that we don't understand. As far as them sucking up souls, this is all throughout the abduction research. Everything that Nick Redfern wrote in his book, it's all there, and they're right now to this day still putting out there to abductees that it seems to me like they're waiting for some type of a cataclysm to take advantage of. And for instance, with the Bledsoe case, there's this idea that there will be a nuclear exchange and these entities will show up and stop this nuclear exchange and put an end to it and appear as our saviors. There's some information I got just this week from someone that there's going to be another virus and that they will show up with the cure. We have even the potential of cataclysmic earth changes actually being real and potentially happening in our future, like a pole shift, and that they could take advantage of that as well. So the theme is the same, a cataclysm that they themselves are pushing for with us as their proxies, and they come along and take advantage. You've heard probably people call the harvest, right? They take advantage of a lot of humans dying for their own benefit, and they are the ones pushing the cataclysm. If you even look at the WF and the One World Order, this is the negative alien agenda. The negative aliens are putting out there, they are telling abductees there needs to be a depopulation. There's going to be some type of cataclysm that the aliens will be taking advantage of. And once that happens, they will be showing up and they will be ruling the earth. And humans will be their subjects. And if you're lucky, you'll survive it because they don't care too much about just your regular, average, everyday human. They care about their intelligence assets and some of their abductees. What happens to the rest of humanity? I don't know. They're looking at some type of cataclysm and a soul harvest. Maybe that energy runs them for a very long time and they don't need humans on the earth after that for a while.
Become a member on Patreon to get full access to all exclusive content. A few of the perks is the full-length ad-free video version of the interviews, face-to-face interviews, bonus shows, and behind-the-scenes footage. You will also receive the video interview way in advance before the audio-only interview gets dropped on all platforms. Sign up and become a member today for only $3 a month. The link is in the description.
Just my own experience with my father, I can tell you it's all related. They're worshiping entities, they're trafficking children, they're doing rituals. I mean, it's awful. And so many people, well, I should say not too many people, but people jump on there and say, oh, you don't have any proof and all this kind of stuff. I posted as much proof as I possibly could. The man was real. He was running a brothel, is what he liked to call it. If you see one of the newspaper articles, it actually verifies that my family's been doing this for 100 years or more. This is a family business. And he was actually arrested and put into prison. And so was the city manager. And who was the city manager at that time? I mean, I'm sorry, the mayor was Dianne Feinstein. I mean, they're all there. It's all related. He used to go out into the desert and worship entities. And I have his journal where it talks about him meeting Satan. And, these things are all related. Does that mean every single child trafficker is worshiping Satan? No. But I can tell you just from being on the periphery of it, from family experience, it's all related. And the thing is about ufology is very dedicated to disclosure. They want government disclosure of UFOs and entities. And they do not want to hear about conspiracy theories because they think, UFOs are enough of a conspiracy. We don't need to pile on a bunch of conspiracies and have people not take us seriously. And so they are very reluctant to even entertain the things that I put out there because I'm trying to say, hey, this is all these conspiracies that we talk about. There's truth behind most of them, if not all of them, and it's all related. Nobody in my community wants to hear that. And, I understand they're single-mindedly focused on disclosure. That's fine. But to ignore the rest of it is to our own peril, I think.
Exactly. And let's say I didn't even agree with you because that's why I'm having you on, because I love your post on X. And a lot of what you say is firmly, I hate to say believe, but where I'm leaning towards most of the stuff you say, what I'm leaning towards, because next year I may be leaning towards, I can't see myself getting off of the dark side of the phenomena, but I may add some more variables at play. But let's say I didn't even agree with you. I'm not going to bash you because you have the right to say what the hell you want to say, but people just don't, I don't know. People get triggered. They're triggered happy. And you see it on X, you see it, but anybody that, that's listening to this right now, the links will be in the description. I love Fringe's X account. It is, I think it's what is it at Fringe?
I have it right up there. I'm not sure if anybody would be able to see. It's fringe.com. Just at fringe.com. Yep.
But yes, the links will be in the description. I actually following your replies too. So
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because I love seeing what you have to say.
Thank you.
But anyways, with what you were saying, I've said it many a times with great thinkers on the show over the years. Hell, probably since the very beginning, since 2010, with certain guests on the show, researchers, that imagine where we would be with not talking about just the conspiracy side, imagine where we would be with the paranormal side, UFOs, aliens, entities, if some of the great minds and great thinkers were actually looking into some of the conspiracies. Imagine just Stanton Friedman. Imagine him open-minded enough to look into the dark side, conspiracies. That's just Stanton Friedman. Like I can name so many more, so many others. Of course, we know Jim Mars. He looked at all of it, which I love Jim Mars. And then of course Nick Redfern. He does it all. We need more Nick Redferns out there. That's
We do.
that's
We do.
anyways, but yeah, you said it perfectly. If the community would be so much further down the road than it is now, instead of just staying focused, hyper focused in the tunnel vision, and disclosure, they're nuts and bolts craft. No, they're not nuts and bolts craft. It's all intertwined, just like a big spider's web. But I want to know who is that spider, or who are the multiple spiders on the web. I think it's probably we're being bombarded by many different spiders, many different variables that are at play when it comes to understanding the nature of reality. Why are we here? What's going on with the UFOs, aliens, entities? What happened with 9/11? Everything. It all is one big giant jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, it really is. And I've said many, many times before, talk about getting the greatest minds together. If we could get the greatest minds from religion and philosophy together with the people, the science, the nuts and bolts people, I think we would be so much further ahead of the game. But instead, we stay in our little camps, and we kind of fight it out and talk about how wrong the other side is. And I think if those two sides could come together, it would be so much further down the road.
So I guess I want to briefly get to know you just a little bit. I've only been following you maybe a month now. I don't know how long I've been following you, but I'm like, man, where has she been all my life? Because I love your post. Um,
I was
so
not on Twitter all your life, I can tell you that. And a bunch of people watching this right now are going to say, well, I don't have a Twitter account. I'm not going there. But it's actually a great place right now. It's a lot of
it
freedom of
is.
speech happening on Twitter right now.
I know. I see you get attacked a lot.
I do.
And you're always very cordial. You're very. You don't. I never really seen you get triggered. And if you do, we're human. I'm sure you have. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but we all get triggered. You know what I mean?
Oh, I have. I will have a conversation on the side with somebody to talk me down from the ledge here and there. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. I'll write to a friend and just say, hey, I want to respond to this person so bad, but I'm just going to take a deep breath, talk me down from the ledge. I just need to give it a minute. And then usually cooler heads prevail. I have responded maybe a couple of times. I shouldn't have. I'm human.
So how far back? I heard you say before on a X space that you're retired.
I'm retired.
You don't look it at all.
I do. This, I think my pixels on my computer are really old or something because I actually look much older in person. I'm even joking. Sometimes I think, well, I have met some UFO people in person, but they're not even going to recognize me because the camera is kind. Yeah, I'm 55 years old and my adult career was in law enforcement and I am retired. I've been married 26 years. My husband did 30 years in law enforcement, most of those at the same department that I was working for. And we're both retired. And it's a great life. I highly recommend it. I remember when I was younger, my grandparents raised me for a lot of years. My grandparents used to tell me, you need to get a job that has a pension. And I didn't even know what a pension was at that time, right? It's like, well, what's a pension? Oh, you got to work for the city. Cities have a pension. Okay, what should I do? It was super just young and naive. And here I am retired with a pension. And I get up in the morning and do whatever I want. And it's fantastic. And don't get me wrong, I paid a price for that. We all do. That pension is not free. But I think it was well earned. And I enjoy waking up in the morning and just relaxing. I wake up when I want. I go to the gym. I hang out a lot with my family. We spend a lot of time doing water sports on the lake. And we have a really close-knit family. And it's a great life. So I did my time and I'm no longer there. Matter of fact, it seems like another world sometimes. Police work seems like a whole nother world. Sometimes my husband and I speak about it and just think, oh my gosh, did we actually do that? I spent a lot of time undercover, and a lot of people will criticize me and say, well, you don't look like a cop. Well, yeah, you're right. I don't. And I didn't for my entire career. And that's how I was able to fit in doing a lot of the jobs I did. I was very, very fortunate. I had an absolute blast on the job. I would not do it today. It's changed quite a bit since I've left. I cannot recommend it today, although I still have a son, a brother-in-law, and a brother in law enforcement. And that's me. I'm a grandmother. I just got a little puppy. And it's funny because people on X think they have the opinion that because I speak about difficult things on social media, that I must be a very fearful person, a very dark person. People love to say if you've had negative experiences with the phenomenon, you must have attracted that into your life, the law of attraction type of thing. And it's simply not true. To me, it's just a cop-out, and it's not true. And if they actually knew me in real life, they would be shocked that I've had any of these experiences. Because if you see the surface, you wouldn't see it. And if you actually got to know me as a person, you would understand that I'm not a fearful person. I don't attract negative things. I'm not a Debbie Downer. I'm actually just a regular, normal person. I'm the kind of person adults come to for logical, sound advice. So it's a strange thing to come onto a podcast or to meet somebody like yourself and say, yeah, I'm this normal, average, everyday, regular person who had a regular job and now I'm retired, but I've also get snatched out of my bed by aliens in the middle of the night, and they've actually come for me during the day. I know how absolutely insane it sounds, but it's happening to a lot of people. It's happening to someone people I know. It runs in families. So if it's happening to one family member, it's likely happening to many others. And it's something that's difficult to discuss, and it comes with negative connotations. People automatically think you're crazy. Maybe I've been called, schizophrenic, etc., for speaking on these things. But there are things that need to be spoken about because I think there are things that are very, very important. This is not just about, in my personal opinion, it's not just about aliens arriving here from other planets. It's actually much more sinister than that. I think it's much more serious and important than that. And I think it's a very important conversation to have, especially if people can just stay open-minded and just ask themselves, is it possible that this is actually happening to people? Is it possible that this could be real? And that's kind of why I do what I do. I just ask people, keep an open mind, ask yourself, is this possible, what this crazy woman is saying, and kind of go from there.
So you and I are in agreement that, the so-called aliens have been here for a very long time, masquerading behind different masks like angels, demons, jinns, fairies, and the modern grays, for just a few examples. And maybe why we can't see them all the time is because they are just beyond our visible wavelength. We only can see less than 1% of the visible light spectrum. But with all that being said, do you think there have been or currently are aliens or entities that are coming from out there in space, possibly in some type of spacecraft? Do you think that we're dealing with two different types of variables here, or just tell me your thoughts on that, then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I think it's possible. I do not discount the possibility of life on other planets. I have seen absolutely nothing that convinces me that there is life on other planets. In fact, I would not be surprised if the only life in the entire universe is right here on Earth and in these unseen realms that you're speaking of. Anyone who was raised religious will have been taught that there is an unseen realm. There is a spiritual realm. If you speak
in my father's house are many mansions.
Yes, there you go. And if you speak to someone in the New Age, they'll tell you, it's the astral realm. There's the astral realm. There's the etheric realm. There might be other realms that we're completely unaware of, but there's at least that. And I think most people accept that. And there's atheists, there's complete 100% materialists who will not believe there's anything else at all. Fine. But the majority of people accept that there is at least an astral realm if you're New Age, or a spiritual realm if you're religious. I do not discount the possibility that there's life on other planets, that there are potentially some creatures with the technology to travel planet to planet in outer space. So I leave that on the table as a possibility. However, I think what we're dealing with, what we see and what we've seen for thousands of years, is more unseen realm entities than entities from other planets. Now, those two ideas are not mutually exclusive. You could have people living in entities living, maybe people, in an unseen realm on Venus, and we can't see it, and we have no idea what's happening over there, and they're actually in an same unseen realm on Venus. Is that possible? Yes, I think that's possible. Matter of fact, I would say that that's more likely than having actual physical beings physically living on the planet Venus, or any other planet for that matter. I do not discount the possibility that our own entities living here, in my opinion, underground and in our oceans, have made it to the moon, to Mars, to these nearby planets that are in our own solar system. But traversing the entirety of the galaxy, I leave it on the table, but I do not think that's what's happening here. I don't think that's what we're dealing with. And I, might end up being wrong on that.
So for the entities that have been here for thousands of years, masquerading, hiding behind different masks, my only thing is, how did these entities, beings, or whatever they are, these non-humans, arrive here on Earth in this realm? Is Earth actually their domain, and we humans are the extraterrestrials that were seated here? Or like, I know a lot of this is speculation, but according to all your research, what does your gut tell you, Fringe?
So what happened to me is I ended up going through a lot of my own experiences with what we call the phenomenon, and I got to be upwards of 300 right now, just in the last 2 years. So what happened with me was I had my own experiences. It took me a long time, but I ended up coming to some of my own, and I say they're loosely held conclusions, because I do not know anything with 100% certainty. There's so much mystery. There's so much going on out there. And I don't think anybody does, the creator himself, and that might be it. So I ended up going through an entire journey with these creatures and coming to some conclusions about it. And then what ended up happening was I actually came across a lot of research that really coincided with the things that I had already decided for myself. I really do believe, so I'm going to be of the opinion, I'm going to be along the lines of a Michael Heiser, Chuck Missler, a Timothy Alberino, where and for the record, I started out believing that these were space aliens. I really did. When I first started realizing what I was dealing with, I thought they were space aliens. And now I don't think they are. I do think that these entities were probably created before we were ever created. Timothy Alberino will refer to them as the elder race. So a race that was created for the spiritual realm, to rule the spiritual realm, masters of the spiritual realm. And then I believe humans came along after that. So you could look at them as they're probably very similar to us. And I think they were created for the astral. There's a possibility we were created for the earth and they were created for the astral, but I don't know that. Is it possible we were also created in a spiritual realm, and our so-called fall is actually what brought us to the earth? I consider that as well. But either way, I think we have spiritual beings who rebelled against their creator and were cast to the earth. And I think that this is where they are, and this is where they've been for a very long time. I think you've already referred to the many disguises that they wear, and there's been times that they've changed their tactics, and right now they're presenting themselves as aliens from outer space. But I think it's always been the same thing. So I think these creatures likely have their own prodigy and their own creations. I think, although I don't find them extremely creative, I think they could patch things together off of something that's already been created. And I think this is where we're getting these aliens, what we refer to as aliens. I think these are probably hybrid creatures, probably have a lot of human DNA in them. And I think that these alien creatures were probably created to better interact with humans in the 3D, in the physical realm. And so imagine spiritual beings that can take on physicality, but that is not their primary disposition. So I think that these aliens, which appear to be metaphysical beings, they can be very 3D and absolutely interact in the physical realm. And then in the next instant, they can take you into the astral realm or into a realm that is not physical. And so I think these entities were created by these spiritual beings to better interact with us and kind of carry out the agenda that they've had for thousands of years.
What and speaking of the astral realm, that's something that, I'm kind of person that's afraid to. I've never played with a Ouija board, and to my knowledge, I don't think I've ever astral project. Hell, even last year, I think it was last year, spring of 2023. I've mentioned this a few other times. I'm sure some of the ones that listen to the show a lot can hear me saying it, but a handful of times that I made a meme about Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum guy. You'll eat bugs and be happy guy. So I made a meme where put like a Joker face, the white and red makeup over his face, and it said like obey, like the They Live movie, the John Carpenter's movie They Live, and it said World Economic Forum. So and it had the Joker face. So I made that, and I felt like this dread come over me. I was like, okay, I brushed it off, and I was about to post it to X. And I was like, something like told me like not to. I literally was contemplating, should I post this or not? I had like this doom, this dread, this kind of fear. I have no idea why. I even the guy that Peter, he's my Facebook page manager. He helps me kind of manage that my page. And I messaged him. I was like, dude, should I post this? Like, he's like, what do you mean? It's just a meme. I said, I don't know, man. I got this dread that came over me. So, do you think, with that being said, I went ahead and posted it, and nothing happened that I know of. Do you think that people like him, they're being influenced by like some type of archonic type parasites, these entities, whatever you want to call them, something? They're either being influenced subconsciously or consciously, and if they are, maybe somehow it's almost like this dark side. They know whenever these signals, like people like you, I, are doing these things, like that meme I was creating, and it's like they send out this parasitic subconscious army to come to attack certain individuals, or was it just because I don't get dread like that, you know what I mean? But I actually had dread, kind of fear. I don't get like that. And it makes me wonder, is something, well, I'm sure something's latched onto him or influencing him, whether he knows it or doesn't know it. And then subconsciously, he or just people or these things that are influencing him behind the scenes, oh, Michael James is about to make a meme. Let me go attack him. What's your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, so I think it even goes beyond that. Not only does Schwab have severe entity attachments and maybe even some type of possession, I think these entities are all around us at all times. And I think we are all being influenced by the spiritual realm at all times, some more so than others. I think that, when you get up to the Charles Schwab level, you can't be there without it. Those bloodlines are cultivated by the non-human intelligence to get to where they need to be. But I would go beyond that and say we're all being influenced. Abductees and people in the UFO community who have seen entities or UFOs, we call ourselves experiencers. And it's my personal opinion that we are all experiencers of this phenomena. It's just a matter of awareness. I think most people are completely unaware that there is this spiritual realm acting upon us at all times. Tucker Carlson said it not too long ago. We are being acted upon at all times. And it seems like life is some kind of a test, and you need to make a choice. You're going to go one way or the other. You can go to the darkness or you can go to the light. And I think that when it comes to the light, there's rules and they're restrained, and they really want you to get there on your own and make your own decisions. When it comes to the dark, they'll lie, cheat, and steal to get you to their side. So I would go beyond that and say that most people are being influenced. And does Charles Schwab have an entity? I don't see how he couldn't. It would be impossible to get to his status without one. And you might have your own. Think about you're not as old as I am, but there's a cartoon out there, an old cartoon with an angel on one side and a devil on the other. And I think we all have that to some degree or another. I think that we are all being acted upon. And could that have been just your own, you could have picked up on something that made you second guess. It could have been just really good intuition. And it can also be influence. And that's just how I see the entire world. And I'm not the only one, by the way. There's a lot of people who believe that there is just an unseen realm. And because we can't see it, we pretend it's not there. We don't acknowledge it. And they're there, and they're much more influential than we give them credit for.
And it may not just be, that's just a metaphor. I'm assuming the angel and the devil, on the shoulder. But yes, I've seen that. Also, it could kind of go to what Carl Jung's the shadow self, yin yang, as above, so below. And it makes you wonder: Are there many different realms, and that's why we can't see these things? Realities, whatever whatever's going on. People take different interpretations of, in my father's house are many mansions, but maybe we're in the reality where we're kind of we mean more good than harm as the human race. Yes, if you sit down and talk to people, just a casual conversation, not on X, like literally face to face, most people mean harm. They want the best for their children. They want to live, laugh, love. They want to have a better future for their grandchildren and their grandchildren's children. But we're in this artificial, almost like this dualistic warfare between this reality and whatever that dark reality is. And there's this schism happen within our subconscious. We don't know what it is, but there's also the players, another variable at play. These players on the world stage that are being influenced by this other realm, this dark side intelligence, and it's creating this chaos magic within the world, and it's making us where we don't know what the hell is going on, and it makes us seem confused. We throw hate out on X, and we project subconsciously the shadow self that maybe, who knows where that shadow self be actually us in that other realm. Maybe there's multiple, I don't want to know multiple universes, but maybe multiple dimensions or whatever. I don't know. But we all mean well, but it's all orchestrated, manufactured to keep us in this perpetual state of fear and anxiety and all that. Because the more we're in that lower vibrational state, more we're easily controllable, hackable. I think we're hackable because if we're in that lower vibrational state, it makes us more, of course, mind controlled. But I think it's more loose farming. They need our energy. It's almost like we manifest and create this world, the reality. None of this bullshit would happen if we didn't go along with this fear and this dread, this propaganda, and we project that out. It's like we're just feeding the beast. We're feeding the system. But if we project it, I'm not saying all live, love, life, or live, love, happy, kumbaya. I'm not saying that. But if we just quit going along with this loose farming that's manufactured to drain our energy, but I don't think none of this shit would happen. I think what's going on in the world, all the craziness, maybe not all, but most of it is that we're psychically, I don't know, subconsciously or whatever, we're manifesting this bullshit into existence. Maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you probably just solved all of the world's problems in that couple of minute discourse.
I
It was a
I got
almost,
ADD. I got ADD,
what
and
was it? A monologue. There it was. That's the word.
it's hard for
Yeah.
me to kind of wrap my finger because my mind's just go, you know. But I'm not
Oh
going.
yeah.
I'm not going to take mind altering drugs to slow my mind down. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm not
I
going to do it.
wouldn't either.
But
I
yeah,
wouldn't either.
yeah.
But I agree with
Go ahead and tell
you.
me. Go ahead and tell me what you
I
think.
do think that there is a lot of good in the human race. And what this negative alien agenda is to convince us that humans are bad, that the aliens are good, and that the aliens are here to help us, you know, save us from ourselves, because humans are terrible. We're ruining the earth. You know, we're awful creatures. And these aliens are supposed to be higher consciousness creatures, and they're supposed to be here to come save us and ascend us to 5D and help us raise our consciousness. And it's just part of the agenda. It's the aliens themselves. And I say the term aliens loosely. Don't misunderstand what I think these creatures are. But I think that we are almost their proxies. So they are acting out their agenda through us, through humans. And I think a lot, and this does not excuse our responsibility as humans, but I think a lot of our negative and bad behaviors are actually very much influenced. I think that not all of our thoughts are our own. I think that these creatures are all around us, and that we're almost like chess pieces on a board, and they're trying to move us in one direction or another. And I know it probably sounds insane to a lot of people who listen to your show. I don't know how far down these rabbit holes you usually go, but
We go as deep as possible. So
well, that's good. And that's what I think it is. I think human beings are better than we appear. Our natural state is better than it appears to be. And I agree with you. I think most people are just trying to pay their bills and get their kids to school and do a decent job at work and have just enough time to enjoy the weekend if they are able to. And we just don't stop to think about this unseen realm that's actually all around us, full of entities for us and against us. And to me, it almost seems like we're in a proxy war. So I look at this as an actual battle between the powers of good and the powers of bad, the evil versus good, however you want to look at it. It's an actual battle, a cosmic war. And it was said, not by me, but we are both the pawns and the prize in this game. And I think we are heavily influenced, and I think our little chess pieces are moved around the board, trying to win a war we're not even aware of. So I would agree with everything you said.
so to move is all interconnected, but I guess to move forward just a pinch. So Aleister Crowley, I wonder if it's possible, back in, he famous occultist and these rituals and seances and all that. Makes me wonder because, back in what was it 1918, we had the Spanish flu. And, he was conjuring, entities, one called Lamb. I think that was either 18 or 19. I don't know. But it almost makes me wonder if he opened up some type of portal or something back then, and something, maybe him and others or him alone, I don't know. And it allowed this negative influence, this dark side to come through. And then we had the Spanish flu of 1918, which killed about 50 million people, is what they say. And then to go along with that, that's when he came contact. I think it was like a year later, 1919. I think after the Spanish, but Spanish, I think the Spanish flu was still going on. I think 18 and 19, and then he conjured the entity called Lamb, which looks very similar to the gray alien, and it makes you wonder: is that was I know I'm kind of throwing different things, but was that the manifestation of what would a couple of decades later get into our subconscious mind of what an ET is, an alien? So we had this gray archetype in our mind that's kind of shaped like Alex Crowley's Lamb, which is kind of eerily similar to Willie Strieber's book cover, the alien on the book cover. But do you think that, of course, it could just be hiding behind a different mask? Yes. But whatever is going on, hundreds of years before, centuries before, they all shown themselves in different masks. But do you think with the help of Crowley, maybe opening a portal, or I don't know, who knows, that he kind of brought into this somewhat modern day lexicon of what these entities that's been hiding behind the different masks actually are. Now they're showing themselves as the gray alien. Do you think that he could have been a major player in the subconscious molding of the minds years to come of what we're dealing with, instead of fairies and angels and demons and everything else?
Well, I think that a lot of people believe that Aleister Crowley opened up some kind of a portal and, started letting beings through. Relating it to the Spanish flu, I don't know. That's very interesting. It's something I haven't heard. I would definitely have to think about that. As far as us seeing these creatures because of Aleister Crowley and, him maybe seeding it into our subconscious, I think it's important to look back at all of even the cave drawings and, the Nazca mummies that they have found in Peru that a lot of people tried to debunk, and there might be some fake mummies out there, but it's looking like there might, I say might, also be some real ones. You've got a lot of old cave drawings with looking ant people, and with these creatures that look very much like grays. If these Nazca mummies turn out to be authentic, this looks to me like some type of an early hybridization with the plates that were on their bodies and this technology that they were trying to infuse into them. So I think that these creatures have been around a very long time. Now, I do think that there have probably been many iterations of this creature. They do look different. They're built differently, and they have bigger heads or smaller heads, and bigger eyes and smaller eyes, and different colors of skin. But overall, I think this creature has been around a very long time. Although I think that the hybridization has probably been going on, and they've been making a lot of improvements on it. But when I look at the old cave drawings, you can't help but see a gray alien. Now, is that what they meant to depict? I don't know. Maybe they meant to depict something else, but the similarity is there. So I don't think that Lamb seeded the gray alien into our consciousness, although it's entirely possible. Certainly.
I meant to read this a while ago, when we're talking about, see, something we were talking about, but this is out of Nick Redfern's book, Final Events. Quote, "The group believes we are being encouraged to," it's talking about the Collins Elite, I believe. "The group believes we are being encouraged to accept and embrace Satan himself, albeit in the deceptive guise of an advanced alien entity, as our savior shortly before the countdown to Armageddon begins and time finally runs out." And the Collins Elite concludes that we are regularly and routinely formed by an incredibly ancient life form of poorly understood proportions and fog shrouded origins that harvest human souls upon death for purposes both nightmarish and nefarious. You'd like to expand on that?
Oh man, I mean, that's what it's all about. A lot of people make fun of the Collins Elite. They think that a bunch of religious people just don't understand the phenomena and what we're dealing with, and they've put it into the category of religion because they are not bright enough to understand that there might be something outside of that category. I completely disagree. I believe that what the Collins Elite, what Nick Redfern referred to in his book regarding the Collins Elite, I think they were very much onto something. I agree with everything you just read. And these were conclusions, or loosely held conclusions, I came to before I ever came across any research, Nick Redfern, any books that were out there. When I read that book for myself, I couldn't believe it. I mean, my jaw dropped. So there was the Collins Elite. Two of those members actually reached out to Ray Boucher. And they came to Ray Boucher, and I'm just telling the story very loosely, that they were concerned because the DoD was actually involved in remote assassinations and other unsavory activities, to say the least. So I think that the Collins elite was definitely onto something. And I don't think it's just because they're religious that they decided that this is what they were dealing with. There was also another side of the Collins elite, I think some type of breakaway faction, who decided that they were going to make deals with these entities and try to get everything they could out of them. If you can't beat them, join them type situation. And I think that occurred as well. So I think there was a split in the ranks there. And some of them decided to join these entities and to become involved in occult rituals and try to harness this power. And if you know our Defense Department, they're always trying to harness power, and that would not surprise me in the least. You've got a lot of programs that we've been involved in trying to harness this power. You've got Diana Pasulka saying that they're doing occult rituals before the launching rockets. So I think it's all intertwined. I think they were onto something. Again, a lot of people make fun of the Collins elite. Just because they were religious, they must be seeing demons. I think what actually happened is when you get to the bottom of this rabbit hole, that's exactly what's there, is demons and worse. There are creatures out there worse than demons. And that's exactly what I think it is. Now, are they right about every single thing? Am I right about every single thing? Absolutely not. But the general idea of the passage you just read, I wholeheartedly agree with.
I want to read you a large excerpt from Nick Redfern's book, Final Offense. In this portion of the book, Nick Redfern is discussing Tammy Stone's experience. And after I'm done reading Fringe, I just want you to give me your take and analysis. Quote, "The dreams never changed at all," Stone said. "She always saw the figures heading for her vehicle as they got ever closer. Um, she could see that both were around 5 feet in height and possessed thin faces and cheeks. Both were attired in light blue, one piece, quote, uniforms and wore tight fitting caps on their heads. In the dreams, she could only sit in the car overwhelmed, she concluded, by a mixture of awe and fear. As one of the figures opened the driver's door, as the two entities then dragged her out of the vehicle, several more appeared and they proceeded to carry her by the ankles and wrists to the craft. Stone's next memory was of being completely stripped of her clothing and laid out on a cold, hard table with 5 or 6 similar people or things all standing around her. Stone recalled that some sort of cold metallic device, like a lead-colored tube, was inserted into her vagina. Although there was no direct pain associated with the procedure, there was a feeling of discomfort and burning, which lasted until the device was removed several minutes later. A similar, smaller device was then placed in her right nostril and again removed after a few minutes. Again, there was a feeling of heat. As all of this distressing activity was occurring, says Stone, a small machine hovered over me like a big eye, and made a humming noise that made me feel very sick. Her next memory was of being dressed, then carried back to the car and placed in the passenger seat. Strangely, she also had a vague recollection of seeing a man in a military uniform who was sitting in the driver's seat and looking at her with an intense yet scared look on his face. The military, she said, always had that tough image, like in all those recruitment commercials on TV. They don't smile, but I have never seen a soldier look so scared, like he was gripping the wheel and having a panic attack and couldn't breathe. At that point, the dream always ended, but the strange events in Tammy Stone's life were not over. Over the next 3 to 4 weeks, she was plagued by apocalyptical dreams and nightmares. They graphically depicted a near future Earth that had been reduced to ruins from a combination of localized atomic exchanges, pollution, overpopulation, and starvation, and the ravages of a disturbing manufactured lethal virus that had laid waste of much of the Middle East and was now spiraling out of control and spreading at the alarming rate across the rest of the planet. Judgment Day, Armageddon, the end of all things, and a disturbing afterlife in which several types of gray like entities, fed vampire style on human souls, dominated Stone's every sleeping moment, said Stone. Several times I was in the dreams, like I was flying over the planet watching it all, but not my body, end quote. Here, he goes on a little bit, talks more about her being harassed by the military and government officials. And we'll read just a little bit more. Quote, Stone told the two Air Force men about her nightmares. They expressed deep concern and confided in her about a number of other kidnapped citizens had been discreetly approached by the project and had told very similar apocalyptic stories. The visitors also guardedly informed her that some of the personnel at Kirkland Air Force Base who were working on this surveillance operation of abductees were convinced that the kidnappings were the work of flesh and blood aliens. Others, however, had concluded that the aliens were deceptive demonic beings whose origin was somehow connected with the realm of the dead and the afterlife, and that the creatures derived sustenance from the human souls. This was, of course, the belief held by many members of the Collins elite since at least the 1960s and 1970s. Stone also learned the senior figures within the U.S. intelligence community were convinced that these creatures were manipulating and infiltrating human society. Some within the military even speculated that the creatures were kidnapping and programming people for specific future tasks that would be undertaken at the behest of the Antichrist, and that the ultimate intent was to bring on Armageddon, but hiding it behind UFOs, added Stone. Various personnel based at Kirkland Air Force Base had concluded that this would allow the beings to then harvest and feast upon the souls of billions of people who would be annihilated in the nuclear holocaust. Of most concern to Stone to this day is that the Air Force men advised her that the creatures had kidnapped certain people within the American political arena, and that after their return, they would speak about the apocalypse, the end of the world, and why we needed to attack Russia quickly. Why while we had the chance. Apparently, some within the Air Force believed that the ultimate aim to these aliens was to deliberately try and engineer an all-destructive third world war. And when the carnage was over, an immense soul feeding would begin to earnest. Although this was merely a theory, it greatly upset Stone. End quote. What do you think, Fringe?
Yes to all of the above. Yeah, that's a great passage. And I think all of those things are happening still to this day. So she described the abduction. All of that is still happening to this day. She described the gynecological procedures. That's all happening to this day. Abductees are still, and for decades, have been getting cataclysmic earth changes, these types of messages. A lot of times these messages are played on a video screen for abductees. Sometimes they're just put into a virtual reality and it appears as a dream. Those things are all still happening. And there definitely seems to be some type of connection with the afterlife. So as part of one of the passages, the passage you read, it said, you know, these are flesh and blood beings, but they are also involved in the afterlife. That's a conundrum there, right? They seem very metaphysical. They seem to be able to phase in and out of our eyesight, you know, our ability to see, and they seem to be able to phase in and out of the realm of physical realm and the astral or the spiritual realm. So they seem to have some type of dominion in both realms. And I think ultimately this will just be a mastery of physics that we don't understand. As far as them sucking up souls, I mean, this is all throughout the abduction research. Everything that Nick Redfern wrote in his book, it's all there. And they're right now to this day still putting out there to abductees that it seems to me like they're waiting for some type of a cataclysm to take advantage of. And for instance, with the Bledsoe case, there's this idea that there will be a nuclear exchange and these entities will show up and stop this nuclear exchange and put an end to it and appear as our saviors. There's some information I got just this week from someone that there's going to be another virus and that they will show up with the cure. We have even the potential of cataclysmic earth changes actually being real and potentially happening in our future, like a pole shift, and that they could take advantage of that as well. So the theme is the same, a cataclysm that they themselves are pushing for with us as their proxies, and they come along and take advantage. I mean, you've heard probably people call the harvest, right? They take advantage of a lot of humans dying for their own benefit, and they are the ones pushing the cataclysm. If you even look at the WF and the One World Order, this is the negative alien agenda. The negative aliens are putting out there, they are telling abductees there needs to be a depopulation. There's going to be some type of cataclysm that the aliens will be taking advantage of. And once that happens, they will be showing up and they will be ruling the earth. And humans will be their subjects. And if you're lucky, you'll survive it, because they don't care too much about just your regular, average, everyday human. They care about their intelligence assets and some of their abductees. What happens to the rest of humanity? I don't know. They're looking at some type of cataclysm and a soul harvest. Maybe that energy runs them for a very long time and they don't need humans on the earth after that for a while. But yes to all of the above, and all of the above, everything that he wrote in that passage is still happening to this day. We still have abductees decades later being told the very same thing. The end is near, the change is coming. I get messages, be ready. Okay, and so this is all still happening. And there are a lot of times it seems like this is all converging and coming together and imminent, but at the same time, it's been happening for at least decades. So we also can't take what they're saying. They lie, they manipulate, so we don't know if this is actually true. So I want to make sure I say that as well. And they have had it out there for quite some time, and we're still all here. So there's that.
It could have been going on much longer than just decades, because
Yeah.
maybe some of those messages were part of revelation in the Bible, you know, who knows? And then for years, I never even thought of it being a message, or I don't know, just could be. I just always thought of it being like just a type of a random dream, I guess, a recurring dream, the same dream. And it's very vague. I wrote it down. I don't know where it is. I have it somewhere. But this dream, recurring dream, probably started, I started doing the research in '06 when I came back military, basic training at AIT. Um, so probably around '07 ish, probably '06, '07 ish. Started having this dream of like this apocalyptic scenario. Things are on fire, uh, people are dying, and in the sky is a bunch of black triangles, TR3Bs, whatever, and they're just taking people. I'm talking about thousands, millions. I don't. It just trying to recollect. It seemed like it was just thousands or millions. It covered the sky. These black triangles, and there was more to it. Like I said, I wrote it down. I don't know what I did with it, but that's a recurring dream I had for years. I would say it probably lasted at least 10 years. Maybe I would have that same dream, maybe just guessing here, maybe once every couple months, maybe for 10 years. And uh, I don't know what do you think about that? What's going on with that? I haven't really told that's too many times. No particular reason. It's just never got brought up. But what do you think of that type of dream? What's behind it? Is it just my subconscious? And then why do they care to show these type of images, these within dreams or whatever it is, these subconscious downloads people talk about? Like, why do they even bother? Or yes, like you said, and also Nick Redfern, so they can pose as our saviors. Um, with almost like um, you know, they will create these problems through these elites, covertly influencing these elites in the world to create these problems, and then they're going to come in and pose as our saviors, kind of like another Project Bluebeam type scenario. Project I forgot what I was about to say. But anyways, tell me what you think about that, Fringe.
Well, it's interesting how many people this is happening to. So I've had these cataclysmic dreams my whole life. And then when I was about 15, I became convinced there was going to be a pole shift and that, the whole planet was going to tilt and, massive tidal waves and earthquakes and, you name it, it's happening. And I've had those dreams my whole life. You would not believe the number of people who have had very similar dreams to what you just described. Like an entire armada of ships showing up and people being, kind of zapped into them or levitated into them and people disappearing. So I can tell you, you're not the only one. What is it? We don't know. Could, a lot of people dream and our subconsciouses are filing things away and trying to work through things. And is there a possibility this is something that's, potentially a future that people are picking up on? And it's throughout the consciousness of the collective, maybe. But what I can tell you from the abduction research is these images are being shown to people purposely, and they're being shown as propaganda. And there's different types of scenarios. There's the scenario you described with a bunch of alien ships showing up all at once, calling it like a fleet or an armada of ships. There is the pole shift scenario, giant earthquakes, and then there's also the nuclear war scenario. These are being played for abductees on screens as propaganda. Because what the aliens are trying to do to abductees is they're trying to get a buy-in from humanity. They're trying to get a buy-in from the abductees. Like you mentioned, abductees are being trained almost as assistants, like little gophers or, an expansion of the alien force with tasks that they're supposed to be undertaking once this so-called change happens. And so they're playing the propaganda and they're telling the abductees things are going to be so much better. We're going to save you from this. And a lot of times, by the way, they call it human-made climate change. They tell us we're ruining the planet. And then they show a giant tidal wave or some type of giant earthquake or a pole shift scenario. And then you'd have to ask yourself, well, how did man-made climate change cause this? How could man-made climate change cause a pole shift? I mean, that's our electromagnetic field and the sun. And there's a good chance the sun will be coming to fry us at some time in the future, but it's probably not going to be controlled by humans. But they do show this propaganda. They try to get a buy-in from the abductee. They want, things are going to be so much better. After the change, things are going to be so much better. It's just going to be them in charge. And they try to make abductees feel very special by being selected and being part of the family and being, by the way, they tell some people they're going to save the abductee and their family. And so this would be something you would definitely want to buy into, right? Oh, the aliens are going to come. They're going to save us from ourselves. And me and my family are going to be safe. So
they
this
tell
is
the abductees that humans are the problem too.
absolutely. They tell humans are bad. The aliens are good. I can't tell you that some of the comments I get on my page, oh, well, I'm going with them. I'll volunteer. If they would just abduct me, that would be amazing. These people have no idea what they are signing up for. This might sound very dramatic, and I'm sure there will be memes made about this, but this is a literal deal with the devil, literally. This game and this war that is being played is for the ultimate destiny of the human soul. This is my firm belief. And please remember, I started out believing these were space aliens. I am no longer there after having a whole lot of experience in my entire life, but especially these last couple years with very conscious experiences. And so this is very serious. And there's something very strange, esoteric, occult, whatever you want to call it, but they're always trying to get our consent and our permission and our buy-in. It's almost like they need our consent to do what they're about to do or what they would like to do. And so if they can get a collective of humans believing that they're here for our own good to ascend us to 5D, they're in. That's all they need as far as permission goes. And there's something to what you said earlier. You mentioned humans are quite possibly the most creative, much more creative than the so-called aliens are. And we do have some limited powers of creation, especially in a collective. Are there ideas that they're seeding perhaps to get us to manifest these ideas, to get us to bring these things forward so that they can take advantage of it? That's also a possibility. But I can tell you, you're not the only one. Could it be a mixture of different things? You know, people dream for different reasons. We dream of different things for different reasons. What I can say is there's a whole lot of people having this very same dream that you just explained, and variations of the same theme. The aliens are going to save the terrible humans, you know, from humans.
And something you said with but yeah, they want to keep us from our truest and highest potential, you know, they don't want us to prosper and to live, laugh, love, raise children. They want to take all of that, what it means to be human, away, keep us in this, like I said earlier, in this perpetual state of fear and anxiety, because that is a very, that's like a nuclear reactor when it comes to energy. You know, there's no telling what that energy does when we project it out into the world. But you said something about they need our consent. So I'm rewatching some call it the chick flick. But I love it though. The Supernatural, Dean and Sam, you know, Supernatural TV show. So the the demons will just take over anybody, you know, that they can. But the angels, they need our consent, you know. But in the show, you'll find out, you know, that the angels have their own agendas and they're not quite so benevolent as they make. There's some good ones amongst the mix, but so it's almost like there's some kind of universal type contract where that they need our consent, either subconsciously or verbally or whatever, you know, to where I just don't understand that aspect of it. You know what I mean? I know there's something
Yeah.
going on there,
It's
but
super interesting. Super interesting. They are always looking for consent. The bad guys are always looking for consent. And if they can't get it, they will trick you to get it. They'll steal it. It's actually fascinating. There must be some type of laws of the universe that humans have not caught on to yet that they are well aware of. Why would they want our consent? Does it have to do with some laws of physics, maybe, which I think a lot of this is going to come down to? You know, it's easier for them to interfere with us if they have consent. But the bad guys, so the demons, oh gosh, I wish I could remember the name of that movie, Nefarious. Have you seen that movie, Nefarious?
yeah, it's kind
Nefarious.
of a scary horror film, right?
It's the one where the guy is mostly in prison for most of the movie and he's possessed. So the whole idea behind this movie is at the end of this movie, the demon explains how the possession occurred. And it actually started off just with something dumb. And I'm making this up, completely making this up, stealing candy from the store, you know, and then being a bully at school. And then it just walks through the steps that it took for this demon to take over the human. And it was all by consent. And it was all one little tiny step at a time until the human was completely out of control of his own actions. It was fascinating. It's a great movie. And to me, that's kind of how they work it. We mentioned Charles Schwab earlier. Was he born perhaps even through a genetic bloodline into his position? Very likely. So someone like that is probably immediately controlled and maybe even taken over from birth. But all the rest of us aren't. And it takes our own consent and our own actions to give our power away, mostly little by little, and they just kind of chip away at us. For your regular, average, everyday person, for a demon just to jump into your body, I mean, could it happen? Maybe. But much more likely is this issue of consent and permission, and we give it away all the time without even realizing it.
Could another form of consent, maybe just another form of it, be like Stephen Greer C5, where they're trying to conjure and lure these UFOs? You know what I mean? They're projecting love and all this, whatever, trying to wish these UFOs into existence, rather whatever's going on. I don't know, but could that be like a form of consent? And you know, I'm always kind of
Well, I mean, I
I'm
would say
skeptical, whatever. Like, I'm not trying to lure anything in. You know what
it's
I
not just
mean?
consent, it's an invitation.
Invitation.
That's
Yes.
not just
Yes.
consent.
Yes.
That is an invitation to your dinner table and maybe even your bedroom. And by the way, it's an invitation to your family as well, and any children you might have, and your brothers and sisters, and your parents, or whoever else might be living in your household. Um, I'm of the opinion that consenting adults should be able to go out and do CE5 if that's what they want to do. But I think it needs to come with a warning label. I think that Greer, who is a spokeshole for the aliens themselves, he is an abductee. He is their spokesperson. And does he ever once tell a single soul, by the way, you might pick up a hitchhiker, you might meet a malevolent entity. There are also bad entities out there. He does not. And yet we know people have been injured. Even if you just look at physical injuries from dealing with these objects or these orbs, people have been injured by this. We know that there has absolutely been a hitchhiker effect of people calling in orbs and then dealing with straight demonic entities in their homes afterwards. So it needs a warning label. That's my personal opinion. And Greer is not giving it. He just has people out there basically worshiping whoever these UFOs flying around in the skies. Those UFOs are being used for abductions. They are abducting fellow human beings. They are committing atrocities upon those human beings inside the ships. They're creating a hybrid race to take over humanity. Let's not worship these things. If by possibility they're not all the same thing and there might be some benevolent entities out there, you don't need to get their attention with a flashlight and invite them to supper, right? That's not what they need. They're not flying around, just waiting for you to flash your flashlight and to engage in a meditation. So that's how I look at it. I think it's a very dangerous thing to do, but people are adults. Go out and do it if that's what you want to do, but know that you're playing with fire, in my personal opinion.
I may add that to the title: hitchhiking entities. Maybe part of the title. I don't know. But if you had to pick one alarming and threatening, I know all of it, all the above we've been discussing. But if you had to pick one alarming and threatening thing that these non-human intelligences, entities, whatever, aliens pose to humans and or Earth, what would that one thing be? What do you think that agenda is?
So to me, the most frightening thing is the idea that these entities have some type of control over our destiny in the afterlife. To me, that's the most mind-blowing thing there could possibly be, that these creatures we call space aliens or ETs, creatures from outer space, might have dominion over the afterlife. There are so many stories out there of them threatening insiders, people who won't even give up the secrets on their deathbed because they are being threatened with the afterlife implications for themselves and also for their families. So this is the part that bothers me the most. This is what actually makes me speak out on these topics, because I do believe that if we promote this alien agenda and we invite them into our lives and we recognize them and call them our saviors, if we accept their technology, there is a price to pay. And that price might follow us for, I hope it's not eternity, but it might be a very long time. So that's pretty scary for me to think that people have seen grace in near-death experiences. There's a lot of overlap between the entities doing abductions and the entities in near-death experiences. The possibility of them posing as a religious figure or a dead relative. They do this during abductions and they do this during near-death experiences. So the possibility of the deception and possibly even having some type of a contract with them because we've given them permission.
Almost like a soul contract or something, or what?
Well, people call it a soul contract.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I buy into the soul contract. They use that as propaganda as well. So here's what they tell experiencers. We're your soul family. You agreed to this in a before life or in between lives or in a past life. You agreed to this. So you already gave us permission to do what we're doing to you. That's all propaganda. I mean, that's cult propaganda. Is there some truth to, if you find yourself with these attachments and you're doing nothing to detach yourself from these entities, and you're actually promoting the entities and actually encouraging other people to go out and do CE5, et cetera, or you're telling the entire world, oh, the entities are our saviors, they're here to save us, just accept them with open arms, you're now entangled with these entities. Is that what gives them permission over our souls in the afterlife? I don't think they control everybody. I don't think they have an ultimate control, but they do seem to have some control and some influence over at least some people. And this is the most disturbing thing for me. This is not just, oh, aliens are here and, putting out commercials with spaceships and putting out toys for our kids with spaceships. This has huge implications on not just our physical selves, but our souls and our spirits, possibly for eternity. I don't know. Possibly for a very long time. If reincarnation is real, do they get to send you right back around for you to do their bidding again? I don't want any part of that. And so I do try to put it out there, especially for abductees and experiencers, because we're so entangled with the phenomenon, that this is a possibility. We have have you ever heard of Heidi Hollis? She has a
Yes.
show, Coast to
Yeah.
Coast.
Mhm.
So I've had Heidi Hollis in a couple of spaces. Heidi was told by an entity. Now she perceives this as the positive side of the phenomenon. I have no idea. I'm very suspicious of the whole thing, but this is her perception. This entity gave her a lot of seemingly good information. And this entity told Heidi that abductees who do not make an effort, at least an effort, to not promote the agenda and to try to disconnect and sever their ties with the aliens, which is very difficult, by the way, that they are literally owned in the afterlife and that those entities will be meeting them the second they leave their body. That's not what I want for myself. It's not what I want for you or any human being on this planet. And so you've kind of touched on why I'm passionate about the topic, because this is not just about aliens from outer space. This could have implications for the entirety of our being, for the afterlife, for eternity. Are they absolutely lying and they have zero control over the afterlife and all of this is just a mass deception? That's a possibility as well. I'm not rolling those dice. So that's where I'm at with it.
And those abductees, contactees, whatever, maybe they wake up in the afterlife that make these somewhat, I guess, contracts or whatever, deal with the devil, like a better phrase. Maybe they wake up in the afterlife and like Neo in these pods in the Matrix,
Maybe they do. Maybe they do. I mean, there are people who think that as well. All these movies are giving us a little piece of the puzzle. I've thought of that as well. There's definitely an influencer out there who says that's exactly what we all are. So there are people out there who think we're just little finger puppets of our, spiritual selves or our higher selves, and we're just avatars in this game. And that the other side of that is people thinking that we are actually hooked up to some pod in the Matrix, and it's just our consciousness being, downloaded into the video game inside avatars. There could be a lot of truth to that. I think that all
I
of
think it's
those.
much more complex than I mean, cut you off, Fringe. I think it's much
Yeah,
more
go
complex
right ahead.
than a video game. I think like I question everything. I'm open minded everything, but that bullshit detector is always on too. Especially when it comes to aliens say they're love and light. But when it comes to the simulation or the matrix, I think there may be some plausibility to it, but I think it's much more complex. We just say this reality, this matrix, but it's much more complex than I think that meets the eye. We've only been somewhat civilized for what, 1,000 years, couple thousand years or whatever, and our brains can't even think of what this reality really is.
Yeah, I'm sure it's much more complicated. That's just a word that we use to kind of explain something in very simple terms. The other thing with that, with the whole idea of the Matrix, comes the prison planet. I'm sure you're familiar with the prison planet idea.
Hmm.
And to me, that is the alien message. They want us all to think that we're in the Matrix. We have no idea we're in the Matrix. And they are in charge. They created all of the world religions. Our only function is as their loosh farm. And all they do is send us right back around in the reincarnation cycle, and it's never ending, and there is no way out. This is what they want us to think.
That's propaganda also, right?
100% propaganda. They want us to think that it's a hopeless situation. They want us to think that they created us, that they created all of our religions, and that we're at their mercy. So it's really easy to get black pilled on the negative side as well. And what I have found is that the truth is somewhere in the middle. Mostly what they're doing is mimicking the good side and imitating the good side. And they can't do that without a good side in existence. So that's important as well, not to get black pilled into thinking these creatures are all powerful or all knowing. They make mistakes all the time. And they mostly rule us through lies and propaganda and manipulation.
So I have a few more minutes left, but I didn't even plan on talking about the Matrix or simulation or whatever, but whatever this reality is. But over the course of, I guess, since I've been doing my research since '06, I've just come to the conclusion, or always, every now and then, I'll just question why. Why are these things happening? Why does occult rituals actually work? Why do people say they get these downloads? It's almost like if we live in some type of simulation or whatever it is, like I said, it's much more complex than what we've been told or through the movies like The Matrix and others, much more complex. But it's almost like we're all connected to whatever this reality is. I'm not saying we're plugged in into a chair, but we're connected to whatever this matrix, this reality is. And that's why, you've heard the saying there is no original thought. And maybe that's the reason why people would do. Maybe they're actually getting these downloads. That doesn't mean you trust it. And maybe that's the reason why these occultists like Crowley and so many other Parsons, maybe they know how to utilize the alchemical process to tap into whatever this reality is, and they know how to manifest things into existence. It's almost like doing a download or an upgrade on your computer. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's very similar. Like, how do all these things work? Occultist, these downloads. I know I'm missing a lot of things there, but how does it all work unless this reality is something similar to a matrix or simulation?
Similar. And that whole chair thing, that's probably just a metaphor of some kind, but there could be some truth to that. When I get downloads, I don't trust any of them because I know they just get plopped into my brain, and I think I know all the secrets of the universe in that moment. And then I stop and say, okay, come on, this is, I'm always, but you see, I'm now on the other side where it took me a very long time to go from these are aliens to where I'm at today. But now that I'm here, I'm suspicious of all of them. Um, yeah, I think a lot of this is going to end up being laws of physics we don't understand. And I think that science has done us a huge disservice. They made up these laws of physics. They said, this is your little box. This is everything has to fit into it. And that's all there is. And I think that if we hadn't done that to ourselves, we would have a much greater understanding of what type of world we're actually living in.
Yeah, and I'm very skeptical. Like whenever, just because something comes to us that we can explain, whether it be some type of subconscious download or whatever it is, or some kind of apparition or alien or whatever, just because something's beyond our understanding, our reasoning, that doesn't mean that they are benevolent, you know, just because it's beyond our what we can fathom to actually be. It's beyond our everything that we know to be true. Like we're told how, we've been propagandized and mind controlled ever since we was little kids, how the world really is. And whenever things that are paranormal or supernatural, whatever you want to call it, happen, a lot of people jump onto the bandwagon and says and think that this has to be good because this is beyond anything that's normal. but that's not always the case.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I found the UFO community, I was actually dumbfounded by the thought process that was going on in the community. So there's a lot of people who think that these creatures we can't understand them. They're so far beyond our understanding that, we don't want to anthropomorphize them. We don't want to put our human qualities onto them. We can never understand what they're doing or why they're here, what their motives might be, because we're so far beneath them. So when I came across that line of thinking, I was actually fascinated by it. And I just thought, well, what do you mean? Why don't we just use our common sense to figure it out? They're ripping people out of their beds at night. And instead of bending over backwards to make excuses for that and to hope that they're here, for our own good, that's foolish. Why don't we start with, okay, this doesn't look good, so I'm going to start with, this is not good, and you're going to have to prove otherwise. It is interesting that people think that being psychic, getting downloads, being able to remote view, being able to see the future, having prophetic dreams, or I should say, premonitions, that these all equate to a higher spirituality, and that's simply not true. Just because you're psychic or you have a dream of the future, that doesn't mean that you are a higher spiritual being. It just means you're picking up on what's, going through the ethers. So just because if a being is downloading something into my brain without my consent, immediately it starts off in the negative category and I'm suspicious. I'm one of those people who's gotten this future human download. So I was minding my own business. This download literally gets plopped into my brain. There was a sound with it and everything. It almost sounded like a video game. And in that instant, I knew exactly what the phenomena was. These are future humans. They're coming back to mess with the timeline, to make it better for them in the future, and et cetera, et cetera. It was long and involved. And I thought, oh my gosh, of course, that makes so much sense. It actually fits every single puzzle piece, because right now, we're kind of going down that road of transhumanism, right? You can imagine us becoming sexless, becoming more robotic, maybe even being in these gray bodies after we upload our consciousness into some AI and we get a hive mind, just like what people talk about the grays. So it could all make a lot of sense.
Nigel Kerner believes that there's a connection between these alien grays and artificial intelligence. I interviewed him a few
Absolutely.
years ago before he died. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. They're almost an AI hive mind computer simulation or something. So you can imagine a future where we are the grays, right? We might even be creating these things in an underground base somewhere for all I know. So imagine live forever, become immortal, upgrade your consciousness into this software program, and you can live forever. Just imagine that. So it made total sense when I got this download. On the other hand, I have to stop and think, well, wait a minute, could this be steering me away from? Now we're no longer dealing with aliens, we're just dealing with other humans who probably actually are just trying to save ourselves from ourselves. So we're right back to that same propaganda message being brought to us in a different way. Now, could there be a future human component to the phenomenon? It absolutely could be. But I will remain suspicious of something that gets plopped into my head without me asking for it.
So one last question before we round things up for this time, Fringe. How do you feel about the future for humanity, for the survival of our race? I do believe, that there is a spiritual component. There's a spiritual warfare going on, with the influence of these the dark side, these entities influencing certain figureheads within the world, the global stage, the global arena. Um, do you think that we will come out on top in the end? What's your thoughts on that? And the floor is yours.
I certainly have the hope that in the end, the good side wins. However you see that. I am a Christian, I am religious. I am to the point where if there is no Jesus coming to put an end to this at some point, their power is such that can humans overcome that power and their technology on our own? I don't know. I think there might even be humans working behind the scenes to attempting to do that, probably as we speak. But I think the force is overwhelming. And I think we have so many humans who are going to eat up this savior agenda that we will be giving away our humanity. We're going to consent to the governance of these individuals. And so once that happens, where's our savior at that point? Will we be able to save ourselves? I don't know. Are we going to get caught up in some cataclysmic earth changes cycle and get reset and we find ourselves back in the caveman days, perhaps for, the second, third, fourth, fifth time? I'm not sure. But at this point, my hope will always be in an actual real savior. And I know that doesn't sound very enlightened of me. The gurus and even my own esoteric teacher will say, well, that's a savior complex. It's not doing you any good. But at this point, if that doesn't happen, and if everything they're trying to accomplish comes to fruition, I don't see us getting out. And so on one hand, I do have high hope for humanity because I think this book has already been written. If I'm wrong, man, I think if I'm wrong, at best, I think we're looking at another reset at best. Cataclysmic earth changes, start over, back to the Stone Age type of thing.
Well, Fringe, definitely got to get you back on. So many things didn't talk about that I wanted to talk about. But man, this was a treat, honor, a privilege. Thank you very much for coming on Beyond Forbidden. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.